Welcome to What is Going for new thought from the edge of Each week on OMTimes flagship radio show, veteran broadcaster, author, and media consultant Sandie conducts thought-provoking interviews with inspirational authors, artists, musicians, scientists, speakers, and filmmakers who are working at the point where spirituality and science meet consciousness at the very edge of Here is your host, Sandie Sedgbeer.
Hello. With reports of bullying, crimes of hatred, and vicious public trolling on the rise, many might wonder if the news media's continual focus on highlighting the worst excesses of humanity's wrongdoings, rather than its right doings, is evidence that once revered traits such as morals, ethics, politeness, respect, and good manners are on the decline. Whatever happened to simple kindness? 50 years ago, Dawna Markova, co-creator of the book Random Acts of Kindness, ignited a revolution of kindness. Tonight, we're going to be talking about how, in a society that appears to be losing its sanity and its humanity, we can enhance our lives and our health by keeping that revolution of kindness going. My guest is award-winning New York Times bestselling author and popular keynote speaker, Robyn Spizman, whose latest book, Loving Out Loud, The Power of a Kind Word, has been hailed by Dawna Markova, who wrote the foreword to the book, as a powerful act of kindness in itself. Robyn Spizman, welcome.
Thank you. It's so wonderful to be on your show, Sandie.
It's good to have you here, Robyn. Now, your new book, Loving Out Loud, The Power of a Kind Word, shares practical insights and creative ideas for cultivating kindness in our lives in ways that will connect us more deeply with the world around us, as well as those who are close to us. You've written over 50 books. That's quite a feat. What inspired you to write this one?
Well, this book, as I like to say, wrote me. While I've written many books about parenting and about enhancing life, brightening deeds, and kind words, this book became a real awareness after both of my parents died, after long illnesses, my beloved parents who were just remarkable individuals, taught me so much during their lifetimes. And when they died, I was overcome with grief. And I began realizing that as I loved out loud and as I expressed the love they poured into me in creative and kind and meaningful ways, that it also started kind of healing my own heart. I have been very aware that even as a child, I enjoyed drawing pictures and writing poems and being that person that loved to emote and express freely her emotions. But as an adult, I started realizing how powerful words are. They heal, they hurt, they soften, they comfort. And I started realizing it's not as hard as we all think to let someone else know we are paying attention, we care, and we appreciate them. So Loving Out Loud became a mission for me. And now I realize, after Dawna Markova, the co-creator of Random Acts of Kindness decades ago, she wrote that love is a verb. And in this book, there are practical ways to love out loud.
Absolutely. It is a verb indeed. Yeah. Well, I was going to ask you at what point in your life kindness and generosity became so important and meaningful that it became your career. But clearly your parents have influenced you all the way. And it was probably pretty much designed that way from the beginning.
And it could have been, and I feel very lucky about that. When I interviewed hundreds of individuals for Loving Out Loud, asking them, what makes you feel loved? And what do you do that make a mother bond with her daughter, or sisters become closer, or family become united, or someone who's going through a difficult time find answers to return to a loving life after a very difficult time? And the little answers that came, that emerged, Sandie, were simple things. So when I became aware of this whole kindness thing, I mean, obviously it came naturally, but when my daughter was 3 years old, I was a working mom and writing books, and I made her CEO of a pretend family company called the Thank You Company. And I got her a cardboard desk, and I got her all the tools to write and draw, and she wanted a little business card, which we made from poster board. And we went around town in Atlanta, and Allie would hire all the nice people she witnessed. So she was a kinder finder. And it was amazing because people would have the biggest smile on their faces when a 3-year-old would say, I like how nice you were to that person. Will you be in my Thank You Company? And the person, you could have knocked them over with a feather. But I think she began an awareness because it was love in action. It's not love just in the romantic sense of the word. It's what does love look like that makes us feel joyful? How do we connect? How do we slow down and treat each other with kindness and integrity? So this has been a lifelong mission. It's a real part of my life, and this book truly, I think, is my life's work.
Well, you hit the nail on the head there. You started teaching your daughter very, very young, and this is what we need to do. So how, looking at what's happening today, when I sometimes wonder whether, if kindness were an animal, it would be an endangered species. What can we do to start raising kind children, and what can we do, when we've got kids that haven't been raised that way, but we want to influence them?
Well, this is an amazing question, timely, as you opened your show with what's going on in the world today and what does the news look like. And when I think about it, I think about do you hear yourself at home? Are we re-stressing? Are we only repeating what's wrong in the world? Or are we noticing what people are doing right? And that's starting to be a movement, which I'm quite excited about. I was just on television show Monday in Atlanta, and it was an amazing opportunity because I talked about a segment they do called It's All Good. And we talk about who's doing what in the world that's good, what can happen when we shed our attention on what's right versus what's wrong. That's not to say we don't stay up to date with world events. That's not to say we're not aware of what's happening so we can be more prepared. But it does mean, what are we saying to our children? What are we sharing? How do we sound, and are we impacting the climate of our households with hurry up, we're late, or, let's take a deep breath and let's get prepared for the next, wherever we're going. I mean, it becomes an interpersonal thing and a very personal mission that every person can begin, even inside their own heads. So loving out loud is something that's powerful, Sandie, but how do we bring it home? So it's the boardroom, the playroom, it's like the ball field. How do we level playing fields by respecting each other and teaching children? So let's say you take a child that has not been kind, how's that working for them? What's happening? And instead of making a child be nice, you really have to go back to realizing we can teach children how to enjoy building better relationships by beginning with how do we relate to each other.
That is so true. And it has to begin with us. I mean, we are the leaders, aren't we? Absolutely, as far as our children are concerned. What do you do? I mean, what we've seen over the last 50 years or so is so much movement. People are moving further and further away from, the original family unit, and people don't get to create those strong family bonds in the way that they used to when they're all living in a tight community. What would you suggest to help people strengthen some of those bonds when you're living at a distance from one another?
I love that. Well, now it's so easy with Skype and FaceTime and everything that we can do. So the first thing is, to really kind of get connected. What works for your family? And what I've noticed is that, for example, my husband reads a chapter of a book that the grandchildren love. Our 5-year-old grandchild loves Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and James and the Giant Peach and a few classics. My husband remembers reading it, when he was younger to his children. So it's a wonderful tradition. And so they read a chapter a night, and they talk about what's happening to James. And my husband held up a peach once, and it was peach season here in Georgia. And I think the idea is, how do we bring things to life? So when children are very young and everyone wants to see the baby or the child, the 1-year-old, the 2-year-old, and they've learned how to disconnect the phone, if they just push the button and you're gone, that's a lot of fun. But what I tried to do was use puppets. I mean, I thought, Bert and Ernie were far more appealing than perhaps this, grandmother they haven't gotten to know yet. So I used my alter ego to talk like Bert and Ernie, saying hello. And those little sessions became things the kids look forward to. So I think we have to look at, do we meet a child where they are at? 4-year-old, a 5-year-old, what are they interested in? Do you know? So that's the first thing, is get interested in family members and children and grandchildren. Understand what they like to do and what they enjoy, and meet them where they are at, which is often on the floor playing a game. Mm-hmm. And so I have a toy closet, and it's called the I Love You Library. And every day that the grandchildren are with me or we're on FaceTime, they'll say, Grandma, Ro-Ro, they call me Ro-Ro, go to the I Love You library. Would you get a book? And they'll, and I'll pull one out, but I never pull 2 out because I respect books. I take care of them. I take one out and then I put one back. And I never just leave them on the floor and then trample on them or hurt a page, because we treat things nicely with thought so that they can be taken care of. So I start early. And Sandie, I think that is one of the keys, is start early and find one thing you might share in common with a child, and you'll be surprised how it grows.
Yeah, create these little rituals for them, because they become so important, don't they?
Yes, these little rituals, and they remember. So yes. The amazing thing is they remember, you remember, and then you know what to do with them. But children are just going to have a conversation with you. How was school? What'd you do today? See, they want to have fun. So if you're in the car and you play I Spy Kindness and a child's looking around or you're at the grocery store, I Spy Kindness, that's a fun game. So let's look and see who put the can back in the right place on the shelf. Let's see who might be helping take someone's groceries out, and give them a high five and give them a thumbs up, and give kids a way to communicate with the world with their own personal stamp of approval. Thumbs up, good job. And people will go, whoa, that's a thoughtful child. And then these ripples start to happen, right?
And it's so much more meaningful coming from a child, isn't it?
Oh, wow. You got it. And that's a cute story, because I taught my granddaughter, when we meet an adult, we were at a concert, and I said, Danny, what can you say to these people? And, of course, she's kind of hiding behind me a little bit. And it's fine. It was, but what could she do differently? And I said, what can you do to the next person who comes over? You decide, and then I'm going to give you a thumbs up. Let's see if we can work that out. And she said, okay, I'll say nice to meet you. And I'm like about to fall over, because I'm like, oh, that will work. And then the next thing I know, she says to a woman, my friend, and my friend says, hi, Danny. And she says, nice to meet you. And she looks at me, and I gave her a thumbs up, and we're smiling. I repeat the story to her parents. Everyone felt good. We're so proud of her. And she's great now at nice to meet you. So what are we teaching children in moments of where they're still children? Let it be their idea. What else can we do? What can we do to encourage children? Tell us more and listen better. We can listen more.
Oh, listening is a big one, and I certainly want to dive into that as we move through the show because, we think we're listening, and quite often we're really not. You're listening to What Is Going On. I'm Sandie Sedgbeer. My guest tonight is award-winning New York Times best-selling author and popular keynote speaker Robyn Spizman, who's appeared in the media for over 3 decades, including on NBC's Today Show more than 30 times. And we're talking about her latest book, Loving Out Loud, The Power of a Kind Word. We'll be back with more from Robyn Spizman after the break.
The future of Internet radio is here. OMTimes Radio, IOM FM.
Ascending Hearts is no ordinary dating site, but a spiritual dating site with a purpose, to link you with your soulmate. We engineer the serendipity so you can trust that you will attune with someone that has the same matching vibration as you. Ascending Hearts, the conscious dating site for the spiritually aware. Try Ascending Hearts for free. AscendingHearts.com.
More than 24 million Americans have an autoimmune disorder, and that number continues to grow. I'm Sharon Saylor, and I'm one of those 24 million. To put that number in perspective, cancer affects about 9 million and heart disease up to 22 million. That's why I've brought together top experts and those thriving regardless of their diagnosis to bring you the latest, most up-to-date information. Join me, Sharon Saylor, Friday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, for the Autoimmune Hour on Life Interrupted Radio to find out how to live your life uninterrupted.
I'm Fidel Nsombo. I was born in a city called Bukavu in the Congo. We were a loving family, and then, boom, everything that I had disappeared in a single day. People think that when you are a refugee and they resettle you to America and all your problems are done. They don't understand that that's the beginning of everything. I was not born a refugee. I was made one.
It's time we welcome refugee families with open arms. Learn more at embracerefugees.org, brought to you by the Ad Council.
Welcome back. Robyn Spizman, before the break we talked about the listening word. I think it's fair to say that most of us don't know how to listen. We think we're demonstrating empathy when we butt in and say something like, oh, I know exactly what you mean, that happened to me too. But that isn't helpful, and it's not listening. So tell us about the power of active listening.
Active listening is something, of course, that's been around for quite a while, about how we listen in terms of our communication. And what I've learned about listening is something that's even simpler than all that. If you listen to someone and then you start giving advice and you have a knee-jerk reaction, or you go back to perhaps the same old thing you always said, someone might not feel like they were heard. So I like to reverse something. Instead of just listening, think about how you wish to be perceived for just a moment. How do you wish to be heard if you're listening? So if I'm listening to you right now, Sandie, and I reflect what you've said, I might start giving you an answer, advice, but I also might say to you after I've listened, you know, your points are so important about listening. That's something we can all do better. Slow down, hear what someone's saying. But then I might also say, how can I help be a better listener? Start turning the table back on me. Why don't you ask someone you love, a family member, a friend, you know, am I a good listener, Patty? And Patty would say, Robyn, you're a great listener, except if you're on the computer doing 2 things at once. I go, thank you for that reminder. That was a lovely conversation about listening. So before we can really even learn to be an active listener, we have to understand, are we a listener at all? And what do we do that might not communicate clear, active, present listening? So the first thing is, what are you doing when you listen? Are you making dinner while you listen? Are you driving while you listen? What are you doing? And then number 2, when you listen, are you ready to fix it because that's what you think someone wants you to do? Or are you really just present, realizing they need to be heard? So validate that they have been heard. What did you hear? And you might repeat, I think you just told me you're really having a hard time and you might need, to see a doctor, like you really might not be feeling well. They might say, yes, that's how I feel today. And then you might say, how can I help you? What can I do? And the person might say, well, you just listened. That was enough. And then you might say, but I really love you. And when I hear you're not feeling well, that concerns me. Is there anything I can do? And she might say, well, you can maybe drive me to the appointment if I get it. Okay. Is it all right with you if I follow up? See, Sandie, this is just showing you role modeling. Is listening imposing our thoughts on people after we think we have to fix it and be a solution architect? Or is listening really being present, allowing someone to really invest in us, their feelings, and then really holding those feelings like a gift, even when they're uncomfortable, and giving it thought for a moment and think about what really might help this individual know they can trust me. Sometimes it's those words, Sandie, I am trustworthy of your inner thoughts. Here's what I think I can do, perhaps. Could we go on a walk and maybe talk a little further? Walk and talk, maybe. So you see, are we encouraging listening, or do we shut people down? We don't want to hear it. Yeah. For many reasons. So I think our responses, our tone of voice, are we rushed? I'm sorry, I got to go right now, but can I call you back later? Instead of, your call is so important to me right now. I'm supposed to be on another call. Would you mind if I call you back? How is 4 o'clock today? So see, there are 2 different messages. I listened, someone's calling me, but did I just tell them I'm too busy for them?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't want to bother you. You know how that goes. So we have to listen to ourselves first, and then we can be more present in engaging in a conversation that involves listening.
You're absolutely right. I can think of quite a few people, including myself, who have made those mistakes, and you're aware of it when others do it to you. You're not always aware when you're doing it to them. So it is important to first look at yourself. So death, loss and grieving, now they seem to be situations that usually do elicit kindness in people. But they also, create a kind of paralysis, because most people, are more likely to struggle with what words they should be saying, or they hold back for fear of upsetting the grieving person, or because they don't want to offer platitudes. What sort of things would you recommend in situations like that, where we can really do something that is actually helpful for the grieving person, rather than just, saying the same old things that everybody is saying?
Well, in loving out loud, Sandie, that is one of the moments where a lot of people are very uncomfortable. Someone has lost a family member. There's a tragedy. There's a situation that's really difficult. People are at a loss for words. So loving out loud means if you just think for a second, what might you do? You might leave a message. I'm thinking of you at this very second. I heard the news. I know you are completely consumed, but I must send my love. Please hear this message and know I'm wrapping my arms around you right now, and I'm going to see you tomorrow. See, I've learned how not to delay loving out loud, whether that I try not to assign fear to resist that generous thought, that kind thought. What could go wrong in that one message? And sometimes when I know I cannot make any headway, someone's in another city, I might send a letter. I might put a letter in a mailbox. I might send an email. I might send anything instantly. But when I do that, I also realize that the most important thing we can do for someone who is going through grief is to realize it is not their job to respond, to call us back, to say they got the message. They are grieving. It is our job in that moment, our opportunity, let's not say job, our opportunity to reach out and to keep reaching out until they can see the light, which could take weeks. So one thing I've learned, my dear friend Betty taught me, when her dearest friend was ill, very sick, she sent a card, and she was not able to have visitors. Betty sent a greeting card. She got like little teeny notes, didn't spend a lot, but she sent a card every day, and it said, every day until you get better, you will receive a card from me. You are in my thoughts. And she'd write a little loving message. She sent 36 cards until her best friend was up and able to walk and move and out of a coma. And a coma, how about that? So guess what? She didn't even, so they read the cards. This was a woman in a coma. She came out of the coma, and she saw 36 notes from Betty, because that was how Betty needed to love out loud. It's not always about that. The receiver, just love is what we do, and it's about, are you intentional and living the life that you are most proud of? Are you in sync? Today, I could rush through my day and have a to-do list, or I could have a to-love list. And that could even include my parents who are now, have left us. And then when I pay tribute to them and I do something nice for someone else, I might leave a penny on the ground heads up, so it makes someone else's day, and I'll do 2 pennies. Someone else picks it up and their day is lucky, right? Yes. The simple little things we do to bring kindness to the world helps grieving, and it gets us through some really tough times. We know somebody is there, and that's all you might say is, I'll be there. I'll be there. You need me? I'll be there. It's my code word. I'll be there. So that's, there's a whole chapter on this, and I thank you for even asking, because it's such an important topic.
It is an important topic, and I'm reminded, and I was really touched by the story that you shared in Loving Out Loud about the grieving man who, though grateful for people's kindnesses, found that none of their words were actually helpful. And then he met a man who didn't say anything, but just simply cried with him. And he said that was the turning point for him, that someone just sat and cried with him.
Like-mindedness is a very powerful connection that helps us love out loud. So let's say, Sandie, you saw someone and you wanted to get to know them. Have you ever met a person you just kind of want to get to know? Gosh, I'd like to be friends with her or him.
Yes, yes.
So children ask the question, will you be my friend? But when we grow up, we don't know how to use those words. So here's something I've learned to do. I had a neighbor, and I thought, I got to put this book to work, right? A new neighbor. I'd love to get to know her. Used to know her many years ago. So I wrote her, and I said, I would love to get to know you better. I'd welcome having lunch. Let me know if you're ever, have time for this. And she responded with the best answer I'd ever heard. She said, I am so open to a warm and loving friendship. How about Monday at noon? This will be terrific. And she declared how she wished to be friends, warm, kind. And she explained to me that. And it was like, think about that. If you get to know someone and you let them know how you wish to participate in this friendship, it's not the playing rules. That's kind of not what it is. It's just, it welcomed me on such a personal level that allowed me to understand she was ready to receive a friend and be a friend, and a good friend, a kind friend. And she has been the most thoughtful person you could ever want to know. And that was taking a risk, take a chance. So loving out loud it's not Pollyanna. It's not rose-colored glasses. It's not being nice for the sake of nice. It's being nice because it's the right thing to do, and it will brighten your life more than you can ever know.
Yeah. In your research for Loving Out Loud, you found that women seem to be more conscious of the need to be nurtured out loud, to be appreciated and validated, and while men desired the same level of appreciation, they seemed less inclined or didn't know how to ask for it, or in some cases even offer it. How do we encourage men to love out loud? How can we, get them to express their feelings?
Oh, this was an unbelievable amount of information, but I began at home. It was Valentine's Day years ago. I'm remarried to a lovely man. And, this was such a special opportunity. It was first Valentine's Day. I'm a gift-giving expert nationally. I know what to get, what to tell someone. And I thought about loving out loud, what would be the best gift of all? And I realized that saying something kind to me in the morning, starting my day off right, letting me hear something positive would be the best gift of all. So you can't make someone do that, but he did ask, right? So I said, why don't you start my day off with some kind words? And he said, okay. And so he said, how would good morning beautiful be? And I said, fabulous. And he started saying it because he's a man of a few words. So he started saying it. And now, 8 years later, every morning there's Post-it notes, GMB. Sometimes he'll recycle the note, and draw a little smiley face or a heart. It could be 4 o'clock in the afternoon. If he forgot, he'll check in on me. He'll go, good morning, beautiful. It's 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And it has been our little tradition. But it's also taught him the power of loving me out loud. And I think that we focus on all these material things in life, and then when the simplest ideas, one year I asked for a love letter. I wanted a love letter. And let me tell you something, I got a phenomenal love letter. He worked forever on that love letter. He doesn't like malls, and he's not big on shopping, so the love letter was even harder. But Sandie, the idea now, it's my treasure. It sits on my nightstand. I read it occasionally. I think that if we refocus on loving out loud and recognize the power in that, and with a man who, especially someone who has not been taught or modeled to emote freely, generally that's often the way it happens. Or there's a man, a male that thinks it's awkward, or that everyone knows I love them. I don't need to say it. That would be like, being watering it down. The problem is women that have learned how to ask to be loved out loud have done it by modeling it, by being kind, and by inviting it on days when it's special. So the other thing I want to stress is one gentleman called, and I knew him at a distance, and he bought the book to present to his girlfriend because he wanted to be loved out loud. And he wanted to begin their relationship on a very open, verbal awareness of what that means. So men are doing great. Actually, I think men are doing really well. And there are women and men on both sides of the coin that all of us can love out loud more. We can love out loud to our children. And everyone responds differently. One size does not fit all with love. It's a journey.
It is a journey indeed. You write about loving out loud compliments. Most of us don't really know how to give a meaningful compliment. We usually focus on something obvious. But you suggest that we put a compliment in the form of a question. Can you give us some examples?
Sure. Compliments often come off as, oh yeah. People don't seem to accept them graciously. So first, be a gracious receiver. If someone gives you one, let them know you appreciate it. Because 9 out of 10 times, people really do mean it. So we must receive some good kind compliment and not go into, oh yeah, I bought it for 99 cents and it was a bargain. Learn to say thank you. But when giving a compliment, like you said, ask a question. So have I told you how interesting this show is, Sandie? that's me. I'm having a wonderful time talking to you, though. Your questions are so thoughtful, and you obviously prepared beautifully for the show, and you read my book, Loving Out Loud. And so I think a compliment, when you ask a question, it's to ensure you've done the deed. Have I thanked you lately? I have a friend, very well-known, phenomenal author. And I call him and I go, he's been so generous to me endorsing what I do. And I call him and I'll say, have I thanked you today? And we have this back and forth little banter. Have I thanked you today? And that's the way we start our conversations. So have I thanked you today, Sandie? Let me start here.
Oh, well, thank you. It would be wonderful to have little Post-it notes all over the house. I mean, I was reading your book over the last few days, and so it's right, front and centre in my mind. And my little grandson was leaving the house to go to school this morning, and he's not been very good at, with his pleases and his thank yous. But I did something for him at the last minute, and he said thank you to me. And I just found myself, without thinking about it, saying, you're getting so good with your pleases and thank yous, Alec. And I thought, you're influencing me.
So see, it came so naturally, and that's what we hope will happen. We hope will happen because what we hear, we repeat, we become who we sometimes are around. I think the bottom line is today, everyone listening right this very second, if when you turn off the show, when you're done listening, and you call one person to check in on them, and you say, thank you for being my friend, and this is out of the blue. It could be someone for 30 years ago, a childhood friend, or your daughter. Call your daughter. Anyone listening, you have a daughter and a son. Have you told them how thoughtful they are lately, or are you only focused on the 9 times where they forgot to call you and they didn't show up and they didn't check on you? And, if that's all they hear, that's who they become, and they avoid you. So what I've learned is if they do one little thing right, pay attention to it, notice it, and it's not like overpraising. It's just receive it and let them know how they brightened your day, and you had a little pep in your step, right? We've got to put this back out there because what we're doing is also over-talking. Sometimes we talk too much.
Well, on that note, we need to go to a break. You're listening to What Is Going On. I'm Sandie Sedgbeer, and I'm speaking with television personality and New York Times bestselling author Robyn Spizman about kindness, which is the subject matter of her latest book, Loving Out Loud, The Power of a Kind Word. Now, I am going to go into silence, and we'll hear more from Robyn after the break.
The cutting edge of conscious radio, OMTimes Radio, IOM FM. Being a radio host on IOM FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. OMTimes Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single OMTimes endeavor. Host your show with OMTimes Radio Network.
Hello, I'm Lisa Berry. Join me every Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time for Light on Living, a chance to see new, hear different, and feel more as I shine the spotlight on all the ways to lighten the load of life's challenges. Light on Living is your link to that new way you're looking for, that new understanding that will enhance your life, and that positive connection that will support your growth. So join me, and you'll gain insight and start to see things in a new way that motivates you.
Imagine being fired because of who you love. Imagine being denied medical treatment because of who you marry. Imagine being evicted because of who you are. Millions of Americans don't have to imagine this. They have to live it. Because in 31 states, it's legal to discriminate against LGBT people. Get the facts at beyondido.org. Brought to you by the Gill Foundation and the Ad Council.
Welcome back. Robyn Spizman, you write that the phrase loving out loud refers to a way to live openly and without regret. And I love what you say next, because you say it's moving from a rapid fire emoticon, like LOL, to thoughtful emoting. Can you expand on that a bit?
Yes, I think, Sandie, it's amazing that the world has offered us probably thousands of different ways that I can send you a wonderful smiley face, a thumbs up. All of those things are wonderful. But when we rely on them to express ourselves, we start to lose the ability to touch another person's soul, to become a thought they replay in their mind and heart. So when I think of the thumbs up I might have gotten from someone yesterday, can I save that? It was a beautiful situation, and I was thrilled to get the thumbs up. It felt good for a second, but did I put it in my treasure box? Did I store it in my heart? Do I really feel the depth of that? When we say words, we wake up people's souls. We reinforce their presence. We tell them they matter. So can't we go a little further and return to civility, return to doing the right thing because it's just the right thing? That's my goal. And the emoticons, they're there. They have their place. They're fun. But at the same time, if we stop and feel, we think thoughtfully, and we let it out, we don't resist this kind thought, we become the person, the reason somebody else feels cared about today. And that's the world I hope we return to. And loving out loud will set you on that path. And that's why I wrote this book.
You share a number of fun ways to make our friends feel special and important. What sort of things do you do with those you care about?
Well, I work hard at it. And I've learned how to take expectations, put them aside, and appreciate what's going on in my children's lives. I have a son who's a criminal defense lawyer. He's very busy. And I've learned how to ask for an hour of his time so we can get together. And I want to listen to what he's up to. It's the focus is so special. I want to date with my son. I want to date with my daughter. I want to look at, gosh, my daughter has a new baby, granddaughter, 3 months. What can I do? So now every day at 5, I go on a little walk up and down her street with her, 5 to 6, because it's the fussy time. And I'm very good at dealing with fussy time. So I sing, I enjoy it, we talk, I listen. I think I've returned to the simplest ways. It's not going shopping. It's not all the let's get a manicure. It's those things I love to do. It's really, can we just, get together, and I'd love you to tell me what's going on in your life. How are things going? It's not a pressure. So in my own life, I look for that. I have standing dates with my husband. I have told my husband he's going to date me forever. So I'm all about that, to keep it fun and to keep it magical and to keep it all that. I look for traditions, and we bond, and we have a date every month at this antique market. We walk around and call each other if we spot something, and the first aisle, he'll be in the other aisle. We'll meet at the item, and so we really have shared interests, but I also am interested in what he's interested in. And it's a big understanding. If your child is interested in something, if they're a reader, if they're a sewer, a knitter, a dancer, a gardener, what are they interested in? You must meet someone. Remember my basic rule, how we started this. Meet someone where they're at. Right. In fact, Kim Corbin, my publicist at New World Library, loves to skip. I skip.com. I mean, this is an amazing woman. I tried skipping. I'm telling you, you join people where they are at. I skipped down the grocery aisle. The first day I spoke to Kim and learned about her whole skipping mission. And no one actually saw me, but it was liberating. It took a lot of work physically, too. It was a good exercise. But that's what I'm talking about, Sandie. What are you interested in, Sandie? What do you love most to do?
Well, I call myself a shameless sharer. What I most love to do is share things with people, which is why I do this show, because I find people, interesting people, great books, and if I enjoy them, I want to share them with others.
Ah, there you go. I love that. Now that could inspire me to want to share something with someone else. And I love that. See, if you're good at organizing, if you're good at, you have a basic skill, you're good at cooking or baking, people love it when you share yourself with them. That's loving out loud. See, that took no words, right? Mm. So loving out loud comes in all shapes and sizes. And when kids understand what that means, your heart smiles. My little grandson said, but Roro, your heart can't smile. I said, how do you know? I said, my heart is so happy right now. It's doing a little dance. It's singing a song. It's jumping up and down. And he smiled. And then when he saw me next time, he said, guess what, Roro? I said, what? He said, my heart smiled. I said, oh, tell me about it. He said, I got a chocolate ice cream cone, and my heart was so happy. And I laughed because, we could talk about it. It was a Roro thing. No one had ever told him your heart can smile. So there you go. And I love that you're a shameless sharer. That's awesome.
Yeah, definitely shameless. We know from science that being generous, being kind, giving to others is actually really good for our health. The chemicals, the chemistry in our body, and people who are kind, generous and giving tend to be healthier. So there are many benefits just beyond the obvious, aren't there?
Yes, there are, and they're also doing studies now where when we age better if we have our brains receive kind thoughts and kindness that stimulates well-being, and they've proven it that your brain under kind thoughts and kindness, even kind thoughts and imagining a kind action someone did, these are producing incredible benefits. So if we think about that, but then the other part that's such a big awareness for people, one gentleman said, when he stops and does something kind, no matter if he's in a hurry or not, he gets more time back. He doesn't lose time because it feels so good. His time becomes really enlightened and brightened. And that's a beautiful observation about it doesn't take time to be nice.
No,
and when you are nice, you get some time back and you get time with people that bring you joy. It's just this awesome boomerang. So I hope your listeners will read Loving Out Loud and then share it with a family member you wish to deepen your bond or thank them for being there for you. Either way, it has immeasurable possibilities.
It does. You invite readers to let Loving Out Loud be a roadmap to a life well lived. You share a number of stories in the book about inspiring people you've met or heard about who've done exactly that. Is there, of the many, many stories you've shared, and probably many that you haven't, is there one in particular that has touched you more than others?
And so, that's like the famous question about which is your favorite child. They're all my favorite child. My acknowledgement includes like over 100-something people, and there's so many stories.
I know.
But I'm going to pick one, and let me say that all of them are important. They all have changed the way that I move through life. But what I want to say in that, one of the little stories was a simple story about a gentleman very well known in my city, and I asked him, what causes you to be so generous? And he really told me about his dad, and he of course said, his name is Eddie, and Eddie said, I believe in being courteous. Easy to tell someone serving or helping you appreciate them, but he said he learned it from his father and grandfather. A few weeks before his dad had passed away, his dad was at a pharmacy and saw an elderly woman who was not able to afford her medication. So his dad pulled out a $100 bill and paid for her medicine. And the woman, of course, was in shock. And when she gratefully asked who it was she had to thank for this generous act of kindness, and she turned to him because he was obviously standing by her side and took care of it quietly, he modestly replied, "My name is not important." And I think that is a lesson of when we do something kind, are we doing it for the credit? Are we doing it because we look good? Or are we doing it because it really feels good and it's the right thing to do when you can help? And you never know when someone needs help. You don't know someone else's story. So I hope that one little story remembers my name is not important, but loving out loud, the power of a kind word is.
Yeah. The book is divided into chapters that provide readers with some really powerful ways for raising kinder children, loving significant others, family, friends, valuing teachers and co-workers. And each chapter includes a short LOL section that highlights loving thoughts or deeds that are easy to implement. One of them that particularly touched me was the one, have no regrets, because I lost two wonderful mentors within the last 2 years. One I'd had regular contact with, and so there were fewer regrets when they died. And the other one I had less regular contact with. Just as I was about to meet them again, they died unexpectedly. So that was a real standout for me. Have no regrets. Share what you say in your LOL with us, because there's a little bit more to that.
Oh, boy, that's a big one. So we're going to elevate that to that's a life motto of mine. Have no regret. What can that be for me personally? What can be for your listener, Sandie? What can we do? If you have no regret, then you do a flashback over your life of what would you regret if the last time you saw someone was the last time you saw someone, whether it was you or them. None of us know our expiration date. None of us know what's going to happen next. We try to move through the day realizing that every minute we have to express a loving, kind, generous thought, to forgive someone, make up with someone, to set new boundaries so everyone is protected and safe. Don't have regrets, because at the end of the day, the LOLs at the end of every chapter, loving out loud actions you can do today. Call someone you've avoided. Call someone you feel bad you never did the right thing. Call someone and admit the truth. And learn how to truly say you're sorry, not in an obligatory way, but in a way that allows you both to have the freedom from this moment that might held your thoughts hostage in some way. Have no regret. The action is have no regret. It's not something just to kind of look back on. I have no regrets. Every day, employ the idea that if you have no regrets, you woke up trying to make the day the best possible day for you and others, and you went to sleep knowing you can sign your signature on your day. You did the best you could. And remember, even when we don't do our best, tomorrow's a brand new day, and you can try it again. And that would be the loving out loud action that have no regret inspires, is that we truly don't resist those kind thoughts, those forgiving thoughts. We share them and move forward in the most kind way possible, even when you have something difficult to address.
You give lots of great advice, lots of tips, ideas, suggestions in the book. Before we close the show, if you had to distill everything you know into one piece of advice for living a well-lived life, something that you haven't already mentioned, what would it be? What would you say?
Okay, this one is a other topic, but I'd say that don't take everything so personal. We're so sensitive in life, and we assign stories to things that never even happened. We worry about so much in life that is not really going on, and yet we miss some of the big things that are going on. So I think I want to say, take a deep breath and realize that there is a optimistic, beautiful, amazing life available to each of us if we do the work and create it. And regardless of your circumstances, it's critical to get help, professional and otherwise, so you do not miss out on the joy of what love and a loving life can bring you and everyone around you. So I just think we have to do the personal work in our thoughts, our deeds, and our actions.
Robyn Spizman, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for joining us today.
My greatest pleasure, Loving Out Loud. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Loving Out Loud, The Power of a Kind Word by Robyn Spizman is published by New World Library. For more information about Robyn's books and work, visit ROBYNSPIZMAN.com. I'm Sandie Sedgbeer. Thank you for joining me today, and I look forward to being with you at the same time next week. Till then, it's goodbye from me.